Some celebrities vanished without a trace, leaving behind unanswered questions and haunting mysteries. Today, we explore 25 celebrities who mysteriously vanished, sparking rumors, theories, and endless speculation about what really happened to them. Amelia Earhart. In 1937, America's sweetheart chased the last unbroken horizon, a round-the-world equatorial flight in a gleaming Lockheed Electra. She lifted from Lae, New Guinea, on July 2nd with navigator Fred Noonan, 20 hours of fuel, and a Pacific sky that swallowed radio signals whole. "We are on the line 157-337, Earhart crackled to the cutter Itasca, running north and south. Then, static. Roosevelt authorized the largest peacetime sea air hunt in U.S. history. $4 million, 66 aircraft sorties, 250,000 square miles, finding only water and whisper. Did the Electra ditch near tiny Howland Island, drift to Gardner Atoll, or slip beneath waves now combed by robotics and rumor? Each sonar ping awakens a legend larger than aviation itself. The fearless Kansan, who proved sky lanes were not reserved for men, then vanished into them forever. Michael Rockefeller, heir to America's most powerful dynasty. Michael Rockefeller craved authenticity, untouched by oil fortunes. In 1961, his catamaran capsized off New Guinea's Asmat coast. "I think I can make it," he told anthropologist Renee Wassing before swimming 3 miles toward a mangrove fringe patrolled by headhunters. He never reached civilization. Dutch Marines, helicopters, and missionaries scoured swamps. Native rumors claimed spirits, or cannibals, claimed him first. Bones were never produced, but Rockefeller lore endures. Did tribal revenge silence the curious Harvard graduate? Or did he integrate into a village unseen by Western eyes? His empty paddles hang today in New York's Metropolitan Museum, artifacts of both art history and chilling absence. Sean Flynn, Errol Flynn's son, inherited Hollywood cheekbones, but found purpose behind a Nikon. By 1970, Sean's Vietnam-Cambodia images put American living rooms in the line of fire. On April 6th, he and fellow photojournalist Dana Stone motored down Cambodia's Highway 1, camera straps flapping. Viet Cong checkpoints swallowed them. Declassified CIA notes hint at Khmer Rouge captivity, perhaps a year of jungle camps before execution. Friends searched bomb-shredded hamlets. Nothing surfaced but grainy rumors. Flynn's last known act was to chase truth farther than any press credential should travel, into a war zone's vanishing point. Jim Thompson, OSS spy turned Silk King. Jim Thompson made Thai textiles the toast of Paris runways. Vacationing in Malaysia's Cameron Highlands on Easter Sunday 1967, he strolled into emerald rainforest after lunch and dissolved among cicadas. Malaysian troops, Aboriginal trackers, and bloodhounds blanketed 400 square miles. Not a scrap of cloth appeared. Theories bloom. Abduction by communist guerrillas, CIA recall for covert ops, tiger attack, or voluntary retirement to a monk's anonymity. His teak Bangkok mansion is now a museum. Tourists marvel at its serenity. Forgetting its owner walked out a back door history never reopened. Jimmy Hoffa, Teamsters boss Jimmy Hoffa, brokered pensions and presidents, then sought a Detroit sit-down with mob lieutenants on July 30th, 1975. He phoned his wife from the Machus Red Fox restaurant at 2:30 p.m., complaining the men were late. 30 minutes later, Hoffa evaporated. Famed digs under Giants Stadium, suburban horse farms, and Great Lakes piers yielded only backhoes and folklore. FBI files point to a quick Union mob hit, body cremated within hours, but without remains, America's most infamous labor leader, clocks in daily on tabloid pages, forever out to lunch. Jean Spangler, Hollywood, extra Jean Spangler, kissed her daughter goodnight on October 7, 1949, promising a late shoot and child support chat with her ex. 2 days later, police found her purse at LA's Griffith Park, strap broken, inside a note. "Kirk, can't wait any longer. Going to see Dr. Scott. It will work best this way while Mother is away." Was Kirk film idol Kirk Douglas? He denied involvement. Did an illegal abortion end her life? No hospital admitted her. Casting calls still list Jean Spangler as pending, a cautionary tale of stardom's backlot shadows. Weldon Keys, poet, painter, jazz pianist. Weldon Keys was brilliance wrapped in restlessness. On July 18, 1955, his Plymouth sedan idled beside San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. Keys inside, cat left with neighbors. Bank accounts drained suggested Mexico. Suicide notes absent suggested otherwise. Friends recall him saying, "The world is full of people who just disappear." 40 years later, critics hail his verse, yet his finest line may be the footprints that stop mid-span, inviting scholars to finish the stanza. Forrest Dye, Shab Toronto rapper. Forrest Shab packed beach vibes and breakout single Passenger before flying to Puerto Vallarta in October 2010. Vacation photos stopped. Phone went dark. Condo security footage showed him leaving with strangers. Mexican dossiers remain sealed. CP Records scrapped album plans as Shab's mother canvassed morgues and desert roadsides. A decade on, Canadian-Mexican coordination is a bureaucratic riddle, and Dye's music streams spike each anniversary. Ghost tracks from an artist last heard humming Surfside. Barbara Newhall Follett, publishing her first novel at 12, Barbara Follett was a prodigy sailing oceans and sentences. By 1939, the Great Depression had sunk royalties. Suspicion of her husband's infidelity festered. On December 7th, she left their Boston apartment with $30 and a notebook, promising return. She never did. Police delayed action, citing marital spat. Her mother's pleas fell on wartime ears. Today, Follett's out-of-print books trade for hundreds, each a message in a bottle from literature's youngest castaway. Connie Converse. A decade before singer-songwriters had a name, Connie Converse strummed confessional gems in Greenwich Village bars. Fame never called. At 50, letters to friends said she needed to be somewhere else, be someone else. In August 1974, she packed her Volkswagen Beetle and drove west. Plate numbers vanished at the first toll booth. 30 years later, archivists released her reel-to-reel demos. NPR tributes crowned her as the mother of indie folk. Yet the seatbelt in that Beetle, somewhere, remains unclicked. Jim Sullivan. Jim Sullivan cut an arresting figure in late 1960s Los Angeles. Baritone voice, rangy frame, always a Martin guitar slung over one shoulder. UFO, his 1969 debut, fused country twang, shimmering psychedelia, and lyrics about desert roads where people simply disappear. Critics loved it. Radio ignored it. A follow-up stalled, gigs dried up, and by 1975, the 35-year-old packed his Volkswagen Beetle for Nashville, promising his wife a final shot at stardom. After 12 straight driving hours, he checked into the La Mesa Motel in Santa Rosa, New Mexico, purchased vodka, but never slept in the room. The next day, ranch hands found his car on a remote dirt track, doors unlocked, acoustic guitar, wallet, and boxes of UFO LPs still inside. Tracks in the sand led toward scrubland, then stopped. State troopers ruled out robbery. Locals whispered he crossed paths with smugglers. Fans latched onto the eerily prophetic album title and the cowboy report of a lone man striding into nothing. Without bones or belongings beyond that abandoned sixth string, Jim Sullivan remains folk music's most literal missing note. Bison Deal. NBA center Brian Williams was never comfortable inside arena's fluorescent glare. In 1998, 1 year and $36 million left on his Pistons contract, the Chicago Bulls champion walked away, rechristening himself Bison Deal to honor Blackfoot ancestry. He bought a 47-foot catamaran, Hakuna Matata, roaming the Pacific with girlfriend Serena Carlin and French skipper Bertrand Saldo. On July 6, 2002, they welcomed Dele's older brother, Miles Dabord, a man perpetually in Bison's shadow. 18 days later, Dabord alone sailed into Tahiti, re-registering the vessel as Ariabella and forging Bison's signature to purchase $152,000 in gold. Authorities boarded, bullet holes patched, blood-spattered dinghy scrubbed. French and FBI investigators concluded Dabord shot all 3 companions after a struggle at sea. Perhaps an argument over money, weighted their bodies, and scuttled evidence amid 12,000-foot depths. Cornered in California that September, Dabord injected a fatal insulin dose, slipping into a coma without confession. With every tide, the Pacific whispers a Cain and Abel tragedy. A man who escaped global fame only to fall prey to brotherly envy far beyond land's horizon. Rico Harris. Rico Harris once owned California Playgrounds, a 6'9" prodigy who dazzled at UCLA summer runs before alcoholism derailed his pro hopes. By 2014, 37 and sober, he'd reinvented himself in Seattle with fiancée Jennifer Song, eager to start security work for Amazon. On October 9th, he left for Los Angeles to collect belongings and visit his mother. At 1:08 a.m., he phoned Song from a Sacramento rest stop, exhausted but heading on. 12 hours later, mental health calls pinged his cell near Cache Creek Casino. Then, silence. A sheriff's deputy spotted his Nissan Altima 5 days later on a rutted Yolo County fire road. Engine dead, keys in ignition, phone wedged under seat, a half-empty energy drink, and basketball on floorboard. Search teams mapped ravines and oak scrub for weeks, uncovering a footprint path, a single Nike shoe, and nothing else. Theories range from relapse-induced disorientation to foul play along drug traffic corridors. Yet, for all the satellites and scent dogs, the Kapai Valley simply opened and swallowed a man whose frame once seemed too large for any hiding place. Ambrose Beers. Ambrose Gwinnett Beers survived Shiloh, Chickamauga, and the San Francisco 1906 quake, wielding sarcasm sharper than any saber. At 71, with royalties waning and era changing, he sought one last dateline. In October 1913, he crossed El Paso into revolutionary Mexico, telling reporters he would study real war. Letters to his secretary from Chihuahua Rails described artillery smoke like purple thunderheads. His final known note, December 26th, mentions heading toward Ojinaga with Pancho Villa's División del Norte. After that, telegram wires run cold. Witnesses later claimed an elderly gringo matching Beers was executed by Federalists. Others swore he died of pneumonia in Marfa, Texas. A fanciful tale places him in the Grand Canyon years later, hermit-like, penning cynical aphorisms. Beers himself once wrote, "A missing person is a question embodied." In his case, the question outlived the body, transforming the author of ghost stories into their protagonist, an irony the old curmudgeon might have savored as his perfect, unprintable final line. Lord Lucan. Tall, dashing, addicted to backgammon and borrowed money, Richard John Bingham, the 7th Earl of Lucan, cut every inch a 1960s jet-set aristocrat. But gambling debts mounted, custody battles raged, and on November 7, 1974, horror visited 46 Lower Belgrave Street. Family nanny Sandra Rivet was found bludgeoned in the basement. Lady Veronica Lucan staggered to a nearby pub, bloodied but alive, naming her estranged husband as attacker. Lucan phoned his mother, saying Rivet died in a terrible accident, then disappeared. His borrowed Ford Corsair surfaced in New Haven with a lead pipe inside. Despite Interpol notices and £250,000 rewards, sightings from New Zealand to Zaire fizzled. British detectives suspect suicide by channel jump. Conspiracy buffs envision secret passage aboard a friend's yacht. Probate declared him dead in 1999, and a 2016 death certificate transferred the courtesy title to his son. Yet newspapers revive him annually, positing a silver-haired earl ordering martinis in Montevideo. In upscale London clubs, an empty leather armchair still carries the plaque, reserved for Lord Lucan, just in case. Joe Pickler. Joe Pickler charmed audiences as the mischievous kid brother in Beethoven's Third and small-town quarterback in Varsity Blues. But teenage roles dried up, and by 18 he returned to Bremerton, Washington, finishing high school and selling cars. On January 5, 2006, after poker with friends, Joe left at 4 a.m., promising to call later. He never did. 4 days on, his silver Toyota Corolla sat abandoned near Manette Bridge, facing waterfront vistas he loved to sketch. Inside, a note directed personal effects to his younger brother and declared, "I wish I could have been a stronger brother," but omitted goodbye or suicidal intent. Autopsy dogs swept nearby tidal flats. Divers combed icy Kitsap waters. No human trace surfaced. Family argues Joe planned to re-enter acting, citing audition tapes on his hard drive. Police classify case missing, endangered. In Hollywood lore, fallen child stars often battle addiction or anonymity. For Joe Pickler, the narrative froze mid-scene, perpetually waiting for a final cue that never came. Scott Smith. Few bass lines evoke 1980s exuberance like Loverboy's "Turn Me Loose," anchored by the steady thump of co-founder Scott Smith. A seasoned sailor, Smith took friends out on his 40-foot sloop C Major the clear afternoon of November 30, 2000, rounding treacherous Point Conception, a cape notorious as the Graveyard of the Pacific. A rogue 25-foot swell crashed starboard, sweeping Smith overboard before anyone could react. They tossed life rings. He vanished in spindrift. U.S. Coast Guard C-130s, cutters, and infrared helicopters grid-searched 5,800 square miles for 62 hours. No debris, no body. Experts note currents. There can drag a person 40 miles in 24 hours. Water temperature inducing hypothermia, inside 20. Loverboy resumed touring with replacement bassists, but each encore includes a silent toast to the crewmate claimed by their home ocean. Fans sometimes cast red headbands, Smith's stage trademark, into surf at Point Conception, small scarlet crescents swallowed by waves that keep their secret tempo. Zoe McClellan. Zoe McClellan built a reputation playing competent officers, Ensign Dodson on JAG, analyst Meredith Brody on NCIS: New Orleans. Off-screen, a tempest brewed. Her 2019 split from actor J.P. Ghislaine triggered a Louisiana court fight over their young son, Sebastian. When Ghislaine faced child endangerment allegations, McClellan relocated to Los Angeles under temporary custody orders. In 2021, Ghislaine filed kidnapping charges, claiming mother and child vanished. TMZ staked out last known addresses. Screen Actors Guild mail was returned. Instagram froze at 2019 selfies. Los Angeles Superior Court issued a warrant, yet LAPD classifies the matter civil, not criminal, limiting search resources. Some insiders suggest McClellan lives quietly overseas, homeschooling as legal motions wend through sealed family court dockets. Others fear she's isolated, career stalled by the very disappearance meant to protect her son. Until custody proceedings unseal or paparazzi lenses spot a familiar smile, Hollywood's databases list Zoe McClellan as inactive, even as reruns stream her steady poise to millions nightly. Jimmy "Sweet" Robinson. In Detroit's 1966 club circuit, Jimmy "Sweet" Robinson fronted the Falcons with a velvet tenor that split the difference between gospel fire and bedroom whisper. One July evening at the 20 Grand Lounge, he stepped outside during intermission and never returned for the second set. Bandmates assumed a romantic detour. By dawn, they filed a missing person report. Detroit police, swamped by 60s unrest, logged it with scant detail. Recording contracts listed vocalists collectively, making Social Security tracking near impossible. Over decades, soul aficionados leafed through union rosters, tax rolls, even cemetery ledgers searching for Robinson's real birth name, without success. Some hypothesize mob debt, others draft evasion to Canada, but surviving Falcons recall no fear in his voice, only excitement about an upcoming Atlantic Records audition. Today, collectors spin battered 45s like "You're So Fine," imagining the frontman's silver suit and wide-brim hat sashaying beyond stage lights into Motown mythology. Music eternally sweet, singer forever missing. Glenn Miller. Captain Glenn Miller, architect of the swing era's soundtrack, traded Carnegie Hall for khaki in 1942, leading the U.S. Army Air Forces Band to boost troop morale. On December 15, 1944, he boarded a single-engine UC-64 Norseman at RAF Twinwood, Bedfordshire, bound for newly liberated Paris to arrange a Christmas broadcast. Fog thick as cotton wadding blanketed England. Pilots ignored weather forecasts, eager to beat nightfall. Somewhere above the English Channel, the Norseman disappeared. One theory blames carburetor icing. Another posits the plane flew beneath returning RAF Lancasters, dumping unused bombs, detonating shockwaves that downed Miller. Despite sonar sweeps and French fishing net reports, no wreckage emerged. The War Department declared him dead a year later. Yet family maintained hope into the 1950s. Every holiday season, In the Mood wafts through radio speakers, and listeners picture not just jitterbugging GIs, but a trombonist frozen in midair, baton still raised against the endless gray of a winter sea. Harold Holt. When Australian Prime Minister Harold Holt strode into the surf at Cheviot Beach, Victoria, on December 17, 1967, he was renowned for bold immigration reform and an unsinkable enthusiasm for ocean swimming. Witnesses saw him battle rolling breakers before disappearing beneath turbulent chop. Within an hour, police mobilized one of the largest searches in Commonwealth history. Royal Australian Navy divers, Air Force helicopters, skin divers with spear guns probing sharky depths. Currents off Port Sea form powerful riptides. Experts believe Holt's body was swept into the treacherous Rip at Bass Strait's mouth. Yet absence of remains birthed Cold War conspiracies. Chinese submarine extraction, CIA defection, even staging his own death to elope. Parliament introduced no constitutional protocol for a leader vanishing. Cabinet hastily appointed a successor. In 1969, Melbourne opened the Harold Holt Memorial Swimming Centre. Australians' wry salute to a statesman reclaimed by his hobby, and by waters older than any political epoch. Richey Edwards. Lyricist guitarist Richie Edwards turned the Manic Street Preachers into Britain's raw conscience, carving "for real" into his arm during a 1991 interview to prove artistic sincerity. Mental illness stalked him. Bouts in psychiatric clinics, skeletal weight, notebooks brimming with nihilism. On February 1st, 1995, he checked out of London's Embassy Hotel, drove to his Cardiff flat, then disappeared. His Vauxhall Cavalier surfaced near the Severn Bridge, an infamous suicide magnet. Yet CCTV never captured him on walkways. Receipts show 2 weeks in Bristol guest houses reading newspapers. Investigators flagged sightings in Goa, Fuerteventura, and a kibbutz. Each fizzled. Bandmates kept his share of royalties in escrow, recording 3 albums as a trio before 2008 probate declared Richie presumed dead. Still, Welsh pubs host yearly vigils, guitars on empty stools, while fans parse his last lyrics for coordinates. In an industry addicted to resurrection tours, Edwards remains the eternal encore that refuses the stage. Eter Majorana. By 27, Eter Majorana had unraveled neutron behavior and impressed Enrico Fermi enough to secure a coveted University of Naples professorship. Brilliant yet brooding, he told colleagues, "There are only 2 important things in life: mathematics and women." On March 25, 1938, he withdrew his entire bank account, sent cryptic letters to family alluding to inevitable choice, and boarded the overnight ferry from Palermo to Naples. When the ship docked, Majorana was nowhere aboard, though a cabin steward claimed he glimpsed him at dawn. Mussolini's regime launched a search, fearing defection to Nazi scientists. Vatican officials checked cloisters. Police dredged Tyrrhenian coves. Decades later, declassified Italian intelligence suggested sightings of a hermit physicist in South American monasteries. Quantum theory bears his name, Majorana fermions, particles that are their own antiparticles, simultaneously existing and not. Fittingly, their discoverer became a superposition in history, both alive and dead, present and absent, a puzzle even he might have admired. Frederick Valentic, aviation-obsessed Frederick Valentic, had logged just 150 flight hours when he rented a Cessna 182L on October 21, 1978, planning a twilight hop across Bass Strait to King Island for crayfish dinner, though he failed to file landing arrangements. At 7:06 p.m., with sun below horizon, he radioed Melbourne Flight Service, a large aircraft with 4 bright lights orbiting overhead. Controllers saw no radar echo. Valentic reported engine roughness and a shiny metallic craft hovering, and it's not an aircraft. Final transmission, 18 seconds of metallic scraping. Air Sea Rescue scoured 1,000 square miles, finding only a patch of aviation fuel. Skeptics cite spatial disorientation, noting Valentic often practiced aerobatics. Believers highlight multiple UFO reports that night. In 2012, an engine cowling matching his Cessna washed ashore near Apollo Bay. DNA inconclusive. Today, pilots crossing Bass Strait sometimes glance at green reflections on their windshields, hearing the young flyer's panicked voice in their headsets. Dorothy Arnold. 25-year-old Dorothy Arnold, Columbia-educated and heiress to a perfume import fortune, left her East 72nd Street townhouse on December 12, 1910, intending to buy an evening gown. She greeted a friend on Fifth Avenue, purchased chocolates at Park and Tilford, then vanished amid midday shoppers. The press devoured every hint. Elopement with aspiring writer George Griscom Jr. Fugue state, after repeated story rejections, abduction for ransom. Her socially rigid father, Francis Arnold, spurned police publicity, hiring Pinkertons who canvassed Europe. Rumors spiraled, sighting in Florence art classes, suicide in Central Park's reservoir, fatal operation at an illegal clinic. In 1916, a convicted forger claimed accomplices buried Dorothy in New Jersey after a botched abortion, but excavation revealed only cellar dust. Without body or confession, Manhattan society parties left Dorothy's calling card tray polished yet empty, a silent indictment of a city that prides itself on never losing anyone, except, occasionally, the well-dressed woman standing right beside you.